Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Let's Translate Manga Episode 2, Part A. So this is a series where I walk my patrons through the translation process of manga. Every other month, they vote on a manga for us to translate, and if you're in the $5 level of my Patreon, you get an opportunity to translate a few pages of manga for me to critique in these very videos. So if you're interested in participating in these as a translator, consider joining the Patreon. We are translating manga series that have not been commercially licensed in the US or in the English language. And for this block, my patrons voted for the manga series Fuku Kiru Nara Konna Fuu ni. So first off, this time around, I asked my patrons to have a shot at translating the title of this series. So titles are really hard, just gonna say. You don't necessarily want to just translate them because a title is supposed to be very eye-catching. It's supposed to be fun to say. It's supposed to generate curiosity in the story, and it's supposed to be catchy. Japanese titles aren't always those things. There are different sensibilities to Japanese titles. Like, just think of the titles of light novels and how incredibly long they are in Japanese, and it's become a meme at this point, how long and meandery light novel titles are. But anyway, this title, Fuku Kiru Nara Konna Fuu ni, to me, it kind of strikes me as being like an advertisement. It's like the sort of headline you'd see in a magazine, like written in soft italic text. It literally means, like, if you are going to wear clothes, this is how you should do it. That's like literally what it means. And again, I would envision this sort of saying in a magazine, in a fashion magazine, or in an ad in a magazine for ladies or whatever. And then you have these little like pictures and photographs of cute fashion. That's kind of the vibe I get from this title, and that's kind of what the series is also about too. It's about a brother and sister who are living together, and the sister is really into fashion, the brother is not, but she sparks an interest in fashion and kind of teaches him a different fashion lesson in each episode, basically. So let's see what titles my patrons came up with. By the way, I am making them all anonymous in this video, but if they wish to be identified, they will be identified in the video description. Okay, so patron A translated the title as Dress Like This. Very short and to the point, exclamation point. Patron B translated it as If you're gonna have style, here's how. Patron C translated it as, let's see, If you wear clothes, look good doing it. And then patron D translated it as Dress to impress. So aside from patron D, everybody else kind of just translated the title more or less. Like patron A severely condensed it. It's like, instead of saying, if you're going to wear clothes, you should do it like this, dress like this, those three words convey the same meaning. That's a great way of condensing that whole meaning into just 3 words. And it makes, it makes for a bit of a catchier title in English. English titles, generally we like them to be shorter, we like them to be snappier, we don't like them to be long and meandery, like it's okay for them to do in Japanese. Not okay so much for us to make our titles like that in English. Generally we want our titles a little bit shorter. Unless it is like a light novel translation, because again, the market for light novels is mostly weebs who understand the convention and the meme that Japanese titles are very long sometimes, but manga, not so much. You still want to keep it punchier, usually. This, of course, will depend on the publisher and the series. But yeah, Dress Like This is nice and short and to the point. If you're gonna have style, here's how. If you're gonna have style, here's how is kind of odd for me personally. It seems like if you wanna have style, here's how makes a little more sense, and then it's more in line with the advertising aspect of it. Like I said, like the original Japanese title was giving, magazine article. And then patron C also had a note. The manga cover has it as, do it this way if you wear clothes. But if I had a choice, I'd go with something like the following: if you wear clothes, look good doing it. And patron C brings up a good point in that oftentimes we're actually not allowed to, as translators, come up with a frankly better English version of the title. Sometimes we have to go with whatever English version of the title the Japanese client has already established. So if this were picked up for commercial release by any of the publishing houses in the US to translate it into English, maybe we would have to go with, do it this way if you wear the clothes. That's such a bad translation, by the way. It's just terrible. It's correct, but it's just a horrible, horrible title. Personally, my favorite is the fourth one, Dress to Impress. It's cheesy, it's cliche, but it still also gets the point across. It's like, if you're going to wear clothes, you should do it this way, i.e. to impress people, to be fashionable. That's kind of the whole vibe of this. And this particular episode that they're translating the excerpt from, the concept of dressing fashionably is to impress people. So it works with this particular episode as well. So yeah, I personally like dress to impress the best, but again, like, it'll really depend on your team. The translator rarely gets like unilateral say and like, this is what the title should be. It's something that's, discussed with the group. And usually people on the more production side of things will be the ones to make the final decision. All right, let's go into the series. So we're not starting on page 1 of volume 1, by the way. We're starting on page 7 of volume 1. So we're skipping a little bit of a preamble. The story more or less starts right here with the narration. So there's 2 characters, Yusuke and Tamaki. Yusuke is the brother, Tamaki is the sister. And she's a little sister and he's a big brother. So the narration goes, 俺が22歳の時、両親が田舎に引っ込んでしまった. And then his parents are saying, bye bye. Okay, and then the mom's little aside, she's saying, 介護あるし. And then the dad, in his little aside, is saying, 田舎はのんびりしてていいし. So if you haven't seen the first 2 episodes of this series where we looked at Furare Girl, the way I present these videos is I go through the page in Japanese and give like my live interpretation of it, not my translation of it, in real time. As I'm seeing this now, I am in the moment interpreting what it is into English. So this is by no means a proper translation. This is just what it generally means. So, 俺が22歳の時, when I was 22 years old, 両親が田舎に引っ込んでしまった. My parents moved to the inaka, the podunk, the countryside. And then this shimatta verb ending means like they moved there, either for good and it's bad that they moved there. The shimatta ending kind of has that nuance of, and it's a bad thing that this thing happened. So unfortunately they moved to the countryside. It's not always like very, very clearly, oh, it's a bad thing that they moved, but it just kind of has that vibe to it. And then mom's saying bye-bye, so ta-ta, bye. Kaingo is like care for the elderly, stuff like that. Arushi, so the shi ending, the dad uses it too. It's when you're giving reasons for something. It's implying that here's one reason why we're doing this, but there are more reasons besides this. So for one thing, there's care for the elderly, and then the dad chimes in, inaka wa nonbiri shitete ii shi. In the countryside, you can be lazy. You can just relax. It's really nice. And they're both being like, okay, well, this is one of many reasons why we're moving. That's what the shi ending means. Okay, so let's see how the patrons translated that first panel. So patron A, when I was 22, my parents up and moved to the country. Adios, they'll take care of us. We can take it easy out there. Okay. Patron B, when I was 22, my folks moved out to the country. Bye-bye, there's senior care. It's more peaceful out there too. Patron C translated as, when I was 22, my parents moved out of the city. Bye-bye, plenty of senior services, we'll be fine. Ah, the relaxing countryside. And patron D, when I was 22, my parents moved to the countryside. Later, gators, we'll have careers. That's not correct. We can take it easy. That is correct. So I don't know where we'll have carers. Okay. Yeah, my dyslexic brain read that as we'll have careers. But yeah, we'll have carers. Yeah, caregivers would have made more sense there, but it's very small, this little text right here. So patron D might have been keeping a letterer in mind of having to squeeze in, we'll have caregivers. But we'll have carers is really weird. To me, at least, I've never heard of them described as carers. Caregivers would be better. Yeah, so we're presented with a little issue here with the words that the mom and dad are saying, in that they are so small. You need to keep them very, very tight so the letterer can fit them and that they can still be legible. So let's see. Everybody translated the first part basically as when I was 22. I really liked patron A's, my parents up and moved to the country. It gives it this sort of welp, we're moving to the countryside vibe about it. And that really corresponds with the shimatta verb ending. It's would you believe it? They did this thing that's kind of bad, or that's kind of final, or that's kind of out of the blue or random. Patron B, my folks moved out to the country. I like my folks. And then notice how patron C reworked it as instead of my parents moved to the countryside, my parents moved out of the city. That's also correct, and that's another way that you can translate this. I forget what this is called in translation theory, but it's when you, like, let's say the original Japanese was like, I didn't not want to go to school. If you translated it as, I wanted to go to school. It's like changing something from a negative to a positive. How about, I didn't want to eat fast food, change that to, I wanted to eat a home-cooked meal. It's that kind of thing. It's like if the vibe the author was going for in saying I didn't want to eat fast food was I would rather eat a home-cooked meal, it makes sense to make that second step and translate it that way. So patron C worded it as my parents moved out of the city instead of they moved to the country. And to the countryside is actually what we're looking for here, not necessarily the country. Like the country is correct. My folks moved out to the country. That works too. Although, like, again, just as me, as a person who often misreads things if they're not like super clear, my dumb brain might see my folks moved out to the country as my folks moved out of the country, and then that's a completely different meaning. So I think something like my parents moved out of the city is just a lot cleaner and clearer to me as a reader. And it still gets the same meaning across. Patron D, my parents moved to the countryside. Yeah, I like countryside. It makes it so much clearer that we're talking about the podunk. We're not talking about like they moved out of Japan to some different country. All right, now let's see all the creative translations for bye-bye. So yeah, just a note on bye-bye. It's kind of a wasei ego. You might think that that should just be translated as bye-bye, but it's not quite the same as bye-bye is in English. Bye-bye in Japanese, it's kind of a cutesy, childlike way of saying bye. Like kids use it a lot. Adults don't necessarily use it as much. Like if an adult, especially an older adult, uses it, it comes across as very silly. Like bye-bye kind of has that vibe in English as well. I don't know, it kind of even more so in Japanese. It's just very cutesy. So patron A translated bye-bye as adios. Patron B, bye-bye. I like bye-bye a lot, actually. because you can just hear that in your mind. Bye-bye! And it has the exact ring that we're going for in this manga. The vibe here is like they up and moved. They just suddenly randomly moved to the countryside. And they're being so flippant and silly about it. Patron C went with bye-bye. Again, that's not wrong and it's fine. Like, I'm just saying, like, you can go with other things besides just bye-bye. Later Gators from patron D, I like that one as well. Like, you can get a little creative with something like this. And then the next one, they'll take care of us. They'll take care of us is a little vague. Who's they? Like, we will be taken care of would make more sense, although, as I've mentioned before, you generally want to avoid passive voice. But in this case, I don't know, will be taken care of might be a little better than they'll take care of us, because who's they? It's the government. There's senior care. I like that one. It's short and concise and gets the point across. Plenty of senior services will be fine. That's a bit long from patron C. Yeah, if you look at the Japanese, it's just 5 characters, 5 moji. Plenty of senior services will be fine is even more than 5 words, but it's like a lot of characters to squish into that little tiny spot. Plenty of senior services by itself could work. It's really hard, honestly, to get the vibe across here, because as I explained earlier, she, that ending, makes it like we're giving one reason in a list of many why we're moving, and it's really hard to do that in just like 3 English words to fit in that little space. Okay, patron D, we'll have carers. Yeah, I mentioned that earlier. Carers, my dumb brain just read that as we'll have careers. It's like, what? That's the opposite, actually. They want to retire. Yeah, they'll take care of us. I like their senior care. I think it gets the point across. It's nice and short. It still kind of gets her tone in there. Like, just the exclamation point does a lot. It shows how excited she is. Like, they'll have senior care. The next bit, what her dad is saying, we can take it easy out there. Patron B, it's more peaceful out there too. Patron C, the relaxing countryside. And patron D, we can take it easy. So look at both of their little sayings back to back in all of these translations, because in Japanese they do kind of go together. They're kind of finishing each other's sentences. They're kind of contributing to each other's reasons of why they're moving. The mom's like, yeah, they'll take care of us. We'll have senior services. And then the dad chimes in, and it's nice and relaxing out there too, sort of thing. So if you read them both together back to back with patron A, they'll take care of us. We can take it easy out there. Patron B, their senior care, it's more peaceful out there too. Notice how the two just brings those two lines together. It's like he's helping and contributing to the reason, and together they're kind of making a complete sentence. I really like that too at the end. Plenty of senior services will be fine. Ah, the relaxing countryside. I like the relaxing countryside on its own. I can hear it in his voice saying, the relaxing countryside. It's always nice. You can always tell if you've translated something nicely for manga. If you can just hear the characters saying your words, you can just hear how it would sound without even saying it out loud, then you can tell it's pretty good. Patron D, we'll have carers. We can take it easy. Again, I really like how Patron B added by adding the word to the dad's thing. There's senior care. It's more peaceful out there too. Like, this isn't necessarily my favorite way of wording what they were saying, but together, they work super, super well together. Alrighty, let's go on to the next panel in Japanese. Narration from Yusuke. Ore ni wa daigaku. So for me, college. Tamaki, that's his sister. Tamaki ni wa koukou ga atta shi. So basically, the first line and the second line, you can read these independently with the third line. So you can either read lines 1 followed by line 3 or line 2 followed by line 3. So listen. Ore ni wa daigaku atta shi. Or you could say, Tamaki ni wa koukou ga atta shi. So that's kind of what this is doing. It's applying the atta shi to both of those first lines. So ore ni wa, I had college and Tamaki had high school. This atta shi, so again, the shi ending, it's saying like, well, this is one of many reasons that they moved, basically. Or this is one of many reasons that something that we're going to expand upon in the next narration frame. So let's go on to the next narration square. Ore tachi wa futari de jimoto ni nokoru koto ni shita. So this is like the reason he was saying before, because I had college and Tamaki had high school, that's why we stayed at home. So jimoto is like where we're from, the hometown, where we already are, where our home is. Jimoto ni nokoru, to remain home. Koto ni shita, I think I have a video actually going through koto ni suru from the Genki series. I think I do. If I do, I'll put a card up. And if I don't, or if I can't find it, I won't. You'll have to scour all my videos looking for it. But I'm pretty sure I have talked about this koto ni suru. So koto ni suru, it basically means like to decide to do something. So nokoru is just to remain or to stay behind. Nokoru koto ni suru means to decide to remain or to decide to stay behind. So since I had college and Tamaki had high school, we, among other things, because she, among other reasons, we decided, or it was decided, that we should stay behind to stay at home and not go to the inaka with our parents. And then Yusuke is saying, bye-bye, with like a little ellipses. And if you look at his expression, he's like, kind of not really into it or kind of stunned. And then Tamaki, karu. So I am really excited to see. I have not looked at the patrons' translations before pressing record, by the way. That's kind of how I like to do these, so you get my like genuine in-the-moment reaction. So karu, she's kind of being sassy. So karui means like light, literally, it's what it means. What she's really saying here is like, wow, like dang, that's how flippant of you, how random of you, how uncaring of you, how... it's hard, man. Like in the moment right now as an interpreter, I can't think of a very good, tight, like translation for this, aside from the things that I just said now. So basically, he's just kind of like, bye, I guess. And she's like, damn, you guys, that's totally random. They're having kind of opposite reactions to their parents leaving. So let's see how the patrons translated those. All right, so Patron A, see you. And then Tamaki, stone cold. Ooh, I like that. Patron B, bye-bye. Tamaki, how easy. That's not the vibe at all. But nice try. It's hard, man. It's so hard. Patron C, bye-bye. And then Tamaki, just like that? Okay, I like that. That is absolutely great. Just like that? That's the vibe. You're just upping and leaving out of nowhere? Like, seriously? That's the vibe we're going for. Patron D. Oh, awesome. Patron D did the same thing. So Yusuke says, bye, ... And Tamaki, just like that? So one thing I want to bring to your attention, a couple of the patrons did this and a couple of them did not do that. So if you look at Yusuke saying bye-bye, it's exactly written the same way that bye-bye was written by the parents in the previous panel. So I think personally it's very important to actually use the same translation for both of these because he's kind of just echoing what his mom is saying. His mom is flippantly saying ta-ta, and then he's like ta-ta, like back at her. Like, imagine if this were animated. It's really funny if it's the exact same line and his mom is saying it all excitedly and silly and flippantly and Yusuke is just like, bye, repeating the same thing. So let's see which patrons repeated it and which patrons did not. So patron A did not repeat it. The first one was adios and the repeat was see you. Patron B repeated it and I really like it. Again, I love bye-bye. And it's hilarious if you imagine it like an anime. His mom is saying bye-bye and he's like bye-bye. You can hear it. You can hear the awkwardness. Patron C kept it the same as well. Bye-bye versus bye-bye. And patron B changed it. It was later gators and then bye. See, how funny would it have been if the mom had been like, later gators, and then Yusuke's like, later gators, with that awkward smile. It would have been a lot funnier. The narration, let's see how the patrons tackled that narration. I had college and Tamaki had high school, so we both stayed behind, from patron A. Patron B, I was in college and Tamaki was in high school. We were left behind in our hometown. That doesn't make sense. It needs to form a complete thought together. Manga narration often does that. You'll start one thought in one box of narration and you'll complete that thought in another box of narration. And sometimes it's important, especially if they're split onto different pages or different panels, to like make each box its own complete thought that still goes with the other box. But you need a so or a therefore or because to connect these two together. Patron C, I was in college and my sister Tamaki was in high school, so we stayed put in the city. Yeah, that works. Patron D, I had college and Tamaki had high school, so we chose to stay behind. It would be better if the so were in the second box. Patron D put the so in the first box. I just think personally, it reads a lot better, again, as complete boxes. I had college and Tamaki had high school, so. If you had this hanging so with no em dash, no ellipses, just by itself, it looks a little odd. Versus, I had college and Tamaki had high school, end of box 1, box 2, so we chose to stay behind. That just reads a lot better. I do prefer I had college and Tamaki had high school to, somebody said like, yeah, patron B, I was in college and Tamaki was in high school. It's true, it's correct, because this is past tense. This is something that happened years ago. At the time, I was in college and Tamaki was in high school, so we stayed behind. But it's more wordy this way. And just I had college and Tamaki had high school. I like adding my sister Tamaki just to clarify things. Which patrons did that? Yeah, patron C added my sister Tamaki, which makes it a little clearer. Yeah, patron C I think is the only one who clarified my sister Tamaki. So I just like that for clarity. And in Japanese, you would know this because he's calling her by her name and not calling her sister. She's his little sister. Okay, the next panel. This is taking so long. These videos always take so long. I hope people watch them all the way through. Okay, 最初は不安もあったが、一応俺は成人してたし、元から住んでた家に残るだけだし。Look at all these she's. I think I'm probably going to title this video she, like something about she, because there's so many great examples of how you use she to explain things. 何事もなく、 俺たちは社会人と大学生になった. So this is just all narration against a backdrop of a house. So 最初は不安もあったが at the start, we had our concerns or we were insecure about it. We had our worries about it. Ga, this ga means but. However, 一応俺は成人してたし. So 一応 means like technically or yeah, I was technically an adult already. It kind of implies like I didn't feel like an adult, but I was technically an adult. 元から住んでた家に残るだけだし, so, and all we would really be doing would be staying at the home where we already were or where we already grew up. だし, so for one thing, I was technically already an adult, and for another thing, it's basically just us staying behind in our childhood home. 何事もなく俺たちは社会人と大学生になった. So 何事もなく is like, it literally means like without anything, without anything happening. So without incident, without a hitch. 俺たちは社会人と大学生になった. We, my sister and I, became a 社会人. Literally means like a person of society, but it really just means a worker, a working person, an employed person, an adult. And 大学生, a college student. All right, let's see how the patrons translated that. It was a little scary at first, but I was technically an adult and we still lived in the same house. So I graduated and snagged a job while Tamaki made it into college. We're missing some of the nanigoto mo naku there. It's like, so it was really easy, like smoothly. The transition was smooth was kind of the point. I was technically an adult, yes, and we still lived in the same house. It was more like, and all this would mean is that we would just be staying behind in our old house. Of course, the way I said it just now was extremely wordy and you wouldn't want to actually translate it that way. But it's more like, and we would still be living in the same house. Versus, and we still lived in the same house. That's just a little odd. Patron B, we had a few worries, but since I was pretty much an adult and we still lived at the home we grew up in, I got a job and she started college pretty easily. Yeah, nanigoto mo naku for pretty easily is fine. Without problem, without circumstance. No, that's weird. Without problem. Pretty easily is good too. We had a few worries. Yeah, saisho wa at the start we had a few worries, but you don't really need that at the start. But since I was pretty much an adult for ichio, pretty much, that's also true. An adult, and we still lived at the home we grew up in. Yeah, I like living at the home we grew up in for moto kara sundeta ie. The home we grew up in, or the home we were already in works too. I got a job and she started college pretty easily. Yeah, shakaijin ni naru, I got a job. That works as well. Patron C, we were worried at first, but I was technically a grown-up and we'd always lived in that house. I like and we'd always lived in that house. That really captures the vibe of like, all we really would be doing is just staying in the house that we grew up in and that we already were at. It's like, it's not a big deal to have to, their parents are making the much bigger step. They're the ones that are like moving super far away. All they're doing is just staying behind where they already are. So that really captures it well. And we'd always lived in that house. It captures that. So we both graduated without any problem. That's actually true too. That's not literally what it was in the Japanese. In the Japanese, it was I joined the workforce and she went to college without any problem. But behind that, they both graduated. He graduated college to become an employee, and she graduated high school to go to college. So I kind of like that change there, even though that's not what it literally was in the Japanese. We both graduated without any problem. That captures the vibe of it. It's like we were worried at first, but since I was basically already an adult anyway, I was technically a grown-up, and we'd always lived in that house, we both graduated without any problem. Yeah, Patron C is really good for this narration. Patron D, it was nerve-wracking at first, but I was legally an adult, and we were still in the same house. The days passed without trouble, and now Tamaki's in college, and I've started working. This is a little wordy, but it's good. Like, it captures the spirit of the whole thing. And I like how each box of narration is its own separate thought. Again, just for me personally, when I'm reading manga, like it works so much better for me if each box of narration is kind of its own, it can stand on its own. You don't have to like read the next box for the first box to make sense. It was nerve-wracking at first. Nerve-wracking is a bit of a long word to choose for fuan. We were scared at first. You know, something like that is much more condensed. Nerve-wracking is just a lot of characters. But I was legally an adult, and we were still in the same house. Yeah, the days passed without trouble is also a bit lengthy for nanigoto mo naku. Who did that more concisely? Yeah, without any problem from patron C, pretty easily from patron D, from B, and then patron A just, well, patron A actually kind of changed the nanigoto mo naku to, I graduated and snagged a job while Tamaki made it into college. So snagging a job implies that he did it really quickly and easily. So I think we still kept the nanigoto mo naku in there. It was just expressed a little bit differently. But yeah, patron D's expression of nanigoto mo naku is pretty lengthy. The days passed without trouble. And it's not necessarily the days passed without trouble. It's Tamaki got into college and he started working without trouble. So a little reworking would be good. Let's see, next panel of narration. Kyodai naka, I think that's how you pronounce that. Our relationship as siblings is what that means in English. Kyodai naka, let's see if I'm pronouncing that correctly. There are so many words in Japanese that I know how to read and I know what they mean, but I don't know how to pronounce them properly. Yes, kyodai naka. I am not crazy. That is correct. Okay. Kyodai naka wa futsu toyu ka, nikumare guchi o tatakiai nagara mo futari gurashi wa 5年目となる. So, as for our relationship as siblings, 普通というか, so 普通 is like basic or average. It's like not remarkable, not really worth any comment. It's like, yeah, we're your typical brother-sister relationship. 憎まれ口を叩き合いながらも、憎まれ口を叩き合う. So 憎まれ口 is like to shit talk, or, you know, to smack talk. を叩き合う is both of them are doing it. So both of them are smack talking each other or shit talking each other or yelling at each other or insulting each other. Nagara mo, so even though we like talk shit and talk smack to each other, 二人暮らしは5年目となる. This is our 5th year now living together. Okay, so as for our relationship, even though we fight at times, this is our 5th year living together. So the implication there, like the subtext there, is like, yeah, we fight sometimes, but things are good enough that this is our 5th year living together. Like, we're still living together after 5 years, so, you know, our relationship is pretty typical. Futsu. And then now he's voicing it, like he had this narration, and now he's voicing, wow, 5年か. Like, wow, it's been 5 years. That's what that small ah is doing for the ka. It's like really just like, wow, like, dude, 5 years. Like, that's a long time. And then the next balloon, tamaki mo sukkari, ... and then go, ko is the sound of the vacuum cleaner. We'll come back to this panel in a few minutes, tamaki mo sukkari, because it ties in with the next panel. So just the first panel, kyodai naka wa. So patron A, we're just like any other siblings. I really like that for kyodai naka wa futsu toyu ka. We're just like any other siblings. While we've had our spats, we've been living together for 5 years now. Man, 5 years. Yeah, that's absolutely great. No complaints there. While we've had our spats for nikumare guchi o tatakiai nagara mo. While we've had our spats, it's just 5 words and it does all of that work. We've been living together for 5 years now. Man, 5 years. And again, you can hear it in his voice. Patron B. Usual sibling relationship, I guess. Despite the hate we throw at each other, we've lived together for 5 years, huh? Oh, okay, interesting. Patron B took out the 5 years out of the narration and only put it into the voiced. I don't know that I agree with that. It's more like he's thinking about it. We've been living together for 5 years, and then he, like in present day, after narrating that to us, the audience, he's like, as an aside, like, whoa, dude, it's been 5 years. Like, he's realizing in the moment that they've been living with each other for a long time. Usual sibling relationship, I guess. Usual isn't quite the word to use for futsu here. Futsu is hard. It's one of those words that people often not mistranslate, but But yeah, I think average is more what we're looking for. Patron A did, we're just like any other siblings. We're normal, we're average. Usual sibling relationship is kind of weird. Normal sibling relationship would make more sense. Despite the hate we throw at each other, I like hate we throw at each other. And that actually is more kind of what the Japanese was. Like, if you just imagine that, people throwing hate at each other. Nikumareguchi o tatakiau. Like, tataku is to smash or to hit somebody or something. So I like the imagery and hate that you throw at each other. Patron C, we get along well enough for siblings, engaging in verbal jousting while living under the same roof. And then, has it been 5 years already? Interesting. Patron C did the same thing that Patron B did in taking out the gonen me to naru. I don't know. To me, I think it's important that he repeats it, that he's narrating all of this to us, and then in narrating that it's been 5 years, that's what prompts him to go, wow, it's been 5 years. So I actually think it's a little more important that it's our 5th year together, stays in the narration. We get along well enough for siblings. I like that. Again, like futsuni, it's not like we get along averagely for siblings. It's like we get along well enough for siblings. That really captures the spirit of futsu. Engaging in verbal jousting is kind of cool too, because again, it's a little bit closer to the literal Japanese in that tatakiau imagery of like slamming each other with nikumareguchi. Verbal jousting captures that image in English as well. While living under the same roof, that's another way of expressing while living together. And then, has it been 5 years already? I think that's a good way of capturing manga characters and anime characters, they'll often just say something or another, ka. And it's basically them remarking, wow, I can't believe that something. So gonen ka, some people will often translate something like that as 5 years, huh? Written down, it's a little unclear what the sentiment is. Like, if you're voice acting that, you could go, 5 years, huh? Like, then you can add a little more of the tone into it. But if you're just writing out in print, 5 years, huh, ... it misses some stuff. But it really is more like, has it been 5 years already? He's more just marveling, like, wow. Versus Patron B, 5 years, huh? You're not really capturing the tone there. Patron A, man, 5 years. You can hear it too. Patron D just did 5 years, ... Yeah, that doesn't really capture, he's marveling over it and just kind of in disbelief. Like, wow, dude, we've been living for each other for 5 whole years. Patron D's narration before that, we get along well enough as any siblings. That is to say, we talk plenty of shit, but we've managed to stick it out for 5 years now. I like that. That's really, really well written. Yeah, and talking shit is fine for nikumareguchi o tatakiau. We've managed to stick it out for 5 years now. I like that managed too. It implies like, even though we have our spats, like we've managed to stay together for 5 years, which means like, that means that it's pretty good. It's pretty decent living together. We get along as well as any siblings, works as well also for futsuni. I'm really happy that most of the patrons translated futsu as not as like normal or average. You know, you don't have to translate futsu that way. You can rework it in many different ways as these patrons did. Okay, so that panel that I said we would come back to later, Tamaki mo sukkari ... and he's going to finish that thought on the next page. So Tamaki mo sukkari, next page, oba-san poku natta na, and he's kind of still narrating. He's like still in narration mode, but now he's voicing it out loud so she can hear it. And then she gets pissed. So that's kind of the joke. Okay, so sukkari means like thoroughly or like completely. And then oba-san poku natta. Oba-san poi means like you're like an old maid almost. Not necessarily like you're not married and you're old, but yeah, you've become oba-san, like it can literally mean an aunt, as in your mother's sister. But it's not always like a familial aunt. It's like an older lady, like a middle-aged woman, like me, like not, you know, kind of like a crotchety older lady. It usually has negative connotations to it. If you're saying that somebody is oba-san poi, it means you're, yeah, kind of like an old maid, I'd say is a pretty decent English equivalent. Pokunatta, so she's completely, sukkari, become old maid-y. I would go be like, she's in her old maid arc. That's kind of the vibe. And he's natta na. He's sort of like remarking like, yeah, wow. Like, wow, it's been 5 years, and wow, my sister has become like such an old maid. She's thoroughly in her old maid arc. And then she screams at him, "Oni-chan ga zenzen kaji shinai sei desho?" Only because you never do any housework, Oni-chan, big brother. Which again, we don't call people big brother in America unless it's a porno or something. It just sounds really weird. So usually one would just translate that as his name, Yusuke. ていうか、休日に全身スウェットでダラダラゲームって、むしろお兄ちゃんの方がリアルにむしろお兄ちゃんの方がリアルおっさんだから。So, ていうか、rather, or for that matter, 休日に on a day off, a weekend usually, 全身スウェット, so sweats like all over your entire body, so sweats head to toe, sweats basically, we just say in sweats. ダラダラゲーム, so ダラダラゲーム, ダラダラ is like to kind of lie around, to loaf around, and then game, so loafing around all day in your sweats, gaming, on a weekend. Mushiro, if anybody is an old person, it's you. Riaru ni ossan dakara. So riaru ni is like for real, or like literally. You wouldn't necessarily translate riaru as real, especially since it's being an adverb right now. It's kind of like more realistically. Okay, so we're having a lot of speech balloons, like starting one thought in one box and then finishing another thought in another box. Let's see how the patrons handled that. So, patron A, Tamaki, you've truly become, vroom of the vacuum, an old maid. All because you never do any housework. What about you, gaming and bumming around on your day off in those sweats? That outfit just screams over the hill. Oh, I do like over the hill for ossan. Ossan is just like, it's kind of like an old fart, old man. Patron B, Tamaki, you've really, for the vacuum, turned into a middle-aged lady, huh? Tamaki, yeah, because you don't help with any chores. All you do on your days off is lounge around playing games in sweats. You're the one who's middle-aged. So yeah, as a middle-aged person, I don't necessarily like the term middle-aged just being used to be derogatory like this, even though I use it myself in my own interpretation. Yeah, I prefer terms like old maid and over the hill. Also more gendered terms, I think. Because I think he really is being a bit sexist when he's calling her obasan-poi. So I think using a word like old maid really does the trick, because he is being a little sexist. Patron C, Tamaki, you've really started to act like an old lady. Tamaki, it's because you never do any chores. You spend the whole weekend gaming in sweats, and you call me a lazy old person? Yeah, like old lady kind of works, even though he's not literally saying oba-san-poi, it's oba-san-poi. It means old lady. I still like old maid. I feel like I'm missing it's only because you never do any chores. I think patron B also did it similarly. Yeah, because you don't help with any chores. Yeah is nice, adding the yeah in there, because it's a retort. All because you never do any housework. I think only would work better. It's like, well, that's only because you don't do any housework. That's why I have to be an old lady. That's why I'm an old maid. Patron D, Tamaki, the years sure have, made an old maid out of you. Oh yeah, I like this a lot. The years sure have. Because, so, he's being kind of sentimental in his narration in the previous things, like setting it up. And in this panel, when he says, Tamaki mo sukkari, look how neutral his face is. He could be saying, Tamaki mo sukkari, otona-pokku natte kita na, like, oh, you've become so mature, you've blossomed into such a lovely lady. He could be working up to say something like that, but instead, he comes with this reaction that, see her reaction to this. It's like, she has that vacant stare, shock, with the anger symbol on her cheek. and it's in bold. おばさんっぽくなったな. And that na ending is kind of like, oh, gee, you would have like 大人っぽくなってきたな if you replace the おばさんっぽく with 大人っぽく, or, you know, something nicer. Like, he could have just been working up to this nice sentimental sort of like, wow, like the years sure have made you blossom into a lovely young lady. Instead, he's saying the years sure have made an old maid out of you. Made an old maid is kind of odd because you got made twice, the homonym. But otherwise, I really like this working of it. Again, because you can't tell. Like, he's setting it up for maybe a compliment, but then he just totally disses her. And then Tamaki, only because you refuse to do any chores, there you go. Yeah, that's the vibe we're going for. It's like, that's why I'm an old maid, because you don't do chores. And come on, gaming at home in those ratty sweats on your day off? If anything, you're the old fart here. Yeah, this really gets across the whole vibe. And I love the use of italics. See how much heavy lifting italics are doing here? It's only because you refuse to do any chores. If anything, you're the old fart here. And that's more the vibe we're going for. He's calling her one thing. It's the pot calling the kettle black, basically. He's insulting her, calling her an old lady, and she's like, dude, like, if anyone in this house is an old lady, it's you for being a slob in those sweats playing video games. Okay, and then use case retort, は? 普通だろ?普通 again. むしろ若いだろ? お前だってそれ部屋着だろ? And then she replies, これは今流行ってるルームウェアで. All right, so in English, は? Like, what? 普通だろ? It's like, no, this is how most people dress, sort of. This futsu, again, it's average, it's ordinary, it's normal. This is normal. It's like, but this is how normal people dress. Mushiro wakai daro, so mushiro is like, if anything, this is how young people dress. And he kind of has a point there. Like, young people wear sweats and play games all day. Omae datte, datte, yay. Sore heya ni naro. So omae datte, it's like, well, what about you? It's like, you're one to talk. Like, aren't you wearing, house clothes? Heyagi? Heyagi is like literally clothes for your room. God, I don't know what I would call heyagi in English off the top of my head. Let's see what Japanese Google-san has to say. Roomwear, dressing gown. Oh, loungewear. Yeah. Loungewear. But loungewear kind of sounds more official. I would probably just be more specific and explicit and say something like, what, you're wearing a t-shirt? Or I'd point out the stupid pom-poms. Or I'd be like, yeah, you're wearing a t-shirt and shorts. Like, what the hell? That's really casual too. And then she says, 今は流行ってるルームウェアで. So, これは今流行ってる. This is in style or it's trending. Roomwear. So the fact that she's using an English, borrowed word, roomwear, it makes it sound more, kind of like in English, if we want to make something sound more important, we'll say the French version of it. This is like, oh, this is haute couture sweats or something. This is a couture t-shirt. Yeah, like I might even say, this is couture in a translation. I wouldn't say this is the stylish, this is the room wear that's stylish now, because this roomwear, it sounds more stylish in Japanese because she's using a borrowed English word. So maybe there's like a borrowed French word or some other word that we could use for roomwear. Let's see that the patrons did that. Huh? What's wrong with this? If anything, it's youthful. I mean, aren't you in pajamas? This loungewear is super trendy right now. Okay, that works out pretty well. Yeah, pajamas, just calling heyagi pajamas, that makes sense. If anything, it's youthful. It's nice and concise and short and to the point. And what's wrong with this? Instead of futsu daro, this is normal. What's wrong with this is fine, because it keeps it as a question, which is kind of nice. Patron B, what? Sweats are normal to wear. I'm still young. Besides, what kind of loungewear is that? It's all the rage right now. Ooh, I like it's all the rage. Sweats are normal to wear. Yeah, again, futsu is normal. I don't know, it just sounds a little stilted. Sweats are normal to wear. I'm still young. And it's not I'm still young. It's like, if anything, like the sweatpants make me seem more youthful because kids tend to wear sweatpants. I like what kind of loungewear is that, and it's all the rage right now. However, Yeah, what kind of, again, loungewear sounds a little too sophisticated actually in English, even though heagi could translate to loungewear. The point is like, how are you dressed any nicer than I am? Like, I'm wearing sweats, but you're wearing a t-shirt and shorts and a sweatshirt. Like, how are you any different from me? And she's trying to say, well, but my sweatpants are fashionable sweatpants. I like it's all the rage right now for hayatteru. Patrons see, what? I'm being normal. This is what people our age do. Aren't your clothes for housewear too? Yes, but these are in fashion right now. I kind of like yes, but these are in fashion right now. He's basically pointing out her hypocrisy. Like, we're basically dressed the same. Like, why am I an old man and you are stylish? And she's like, yes, but these are in fashion right now. I'm being normal is fine for futsu. This is normal would work too. Again, you don't have to translate futsu as normal though. Futsu is very difficult. This is what people their age do is, again, that's not quite the vibe. It's more like mushiro, if anything. Maybe if this was italicized, that would bring that across a little bit better. This is how people our age dress, which is kind of true. Everybody wears sweats. All cool people anyway. All cool people who like to be comfy. Okay, editing Sarah here, and I realized now that I'm editing it that I forgot to go over Patron D's translation of this section, so I'll do that right now. So, Yusuke, hey, that's normal. If anything, it's what young people do. Yusuke then says, besides, you're wearing pajamas too. Tamaki says, loungewear like this is on trend right now, ... Okay, yeah, so the only notes I have for this is I really like that your is italicized. Again, italics are your friend, especially in manga dialogue, because there's no voice acting, so you really add a lot of character voice just by italicizing words. I also think italicizing loungewear might have really emphasized that too, made it more like, well, this is loungewear, you see. So if you'd italicized loungewear like this is on trend right now, you could even italicize trend too. She's getting really emotional. They're yelling. When people fight and yell, they tend to italicize words more. You know, they tend to emphasize words when they're yelling at each other in an argument. Hey, that's normal. If anything, it's what, yeah, I like the, if anything, that's mushiro. I think, is Patron D the only person who translated mushiro? Yeah. Patron A, again, if you'd used italics, I mean, aren't you in pajamas? That really would have helped that a lot. On trend right now. Yeah, you can translate hayatteru as trend or fashion or rage or trendy. I like that everyone did something different. Okay, back to my former self. Okay, next panel. なんだよ、流行ってる部屋着って誰に見せるわけでもないし. And then she's going, kii, which is like a screeching sort of angry. And then he has a little gasp in the next box, which is a gasp. もしや、俺に見せるためとか. I think he's kind of being sarcastic here. もしや, unless, 俺に見せるためとか, unless you're doing it to show me, you're dressing to impress me. Right, what he was saying in the last panel, なんだよ, like what the hell, 流行ってる部屋着って, like what the fuck kind of thing is, what the hell kind of thing is like trendy roomwear? Is that even a thing? Or like if you translate it as pajamas, like fashionable pajamas, trendy pajamas, is that even a thing? 誰に見せるわけでもないし, it's like, who are you trying to impress? Is kind of the point there. It's like, no one's going to see you dressed like that. Like, who are you trying to impress? Is kind of the point there. もしや俺に見せるためとか. Wait, unless you're trying to impress me. And then there's a dash because she kind of cuts him off with ha, which is like, excuse me? That's kind of the vibe there. And then look at the direction that this speech balloon is going. The fact that there's an indentation that's pointing away from Tamaki means that this is Yusuke talking. 違うよね, してる, してる. It's like, oh yeah, of course not, I know. It's like he was saying before, unless you're trying to impress me. And it's like, which of course is not what you're trying to do. I know. So again, you need this to be comedic. It's kind of a snappy retort. This is a little snappy comedic exchange. Okay, so patron A. Trendy loungewear. Why bother? Not like anyone will ever see it. Grrr! Gasp. Unless it's all for me? Excuse me? Kidding, kidding. Oh, I do like that. You can reduce 違うよね, してる, してる to just kidding, kidding in italics. Because you repeat the してる, してる. I like that. That is also a good trick if you ever need to, because Japanese does this a lot. They repeat words a lot, kind of when they're being funny as well. And if you do that in English, it makes a lot more sense if you italicize one of the words. If it were just kidding, kidding, with no italics, it would look weird. But kidding, kidding, with the italics in the second one, it really works so much better. It's like the first one, he's kidding. The second one, he's being more serious, like for real though, kidding. So don't get mad at me, don't yell at me. Patron B, oh, so it's all the rage, but you're not showing it off to the world? That does kind of work. It's not quite the vibe, but it is kind of what it means. It's all the rage, but you're not showing it off to the world. He's more being, yeah, because he's being a little sarcastic here. And then Tamaki arg, Yusuke, don't tell me you're showing it to me. It's not so much showing it, but showing off. Yusuke, no, wait, of course not. Text, what? Yeah, again, for that, I prefer something like, excuse me? Because she's like about to rip him a new one, basically. That's the death glare. So something stronger than wa, I think, for there. No, wait, of course not. It's more like he knows. Like when he's setting her up in the first panel, like, oh no, unless you're trying to impress me, he knows she's not doing that. He's just messing with her. And then she goes, excuse me, and gives him the death glare, which lets him know, oh no, I need to back off a little bit. I took that too far. And so he corrects himself like, yes, I was kidding. No, wait, of course not implies, oh, and there's a question mark here. Yeah, I think patron B was confused of who was talking here. But yeah, if you look at the speech balloon, you see that the little tail thingy, instead of pointing towards Tamaki, is pointing away from her. So this is Yusuke saying, no, of course not. Patron C, oh, are they? For everyone who's going to see you wearing them, hey, gasp, wait, all along, were they for me? You're kidding, right? From Tamaki. Ooh, that's a very bold extrapolation of ha, but it's the spirit, it's the vibe. That's totally what she was saying. And then Yusuke, I know, joking. Okay, I like, oh, are they? For everyone who's going to see you wearing them. Yes, but these are in fashion right now. Oh, are they? For everyone who's going to see you wearing them. This would work better if it were voiced out loud, or kind of missing a little bit of the sarcasm if you just look at the text. Yeah, as I read it silently now, it's not working as well. If I voice it knowing that he's being sarcastic, it works. But if I'm an English reader of this and I didn't see the original Japanese, I wouldn't necessarily know to read this in a sarcastic voice. Oh, are they works because of the bold all caps for are. For everyone who's going to see you wearing them, like, I don't know, you need a little bit of a italics or caps in the second part of the sentence too, just to show he's being sarcastic, just to hammer that home. I like hey instead of ki. Wait, all along were they for, that's a little odd. I kind of think unless would work better. Wait, unless they were for me. You're kidding, right? I know, and I like you're kidding, right, for ha. I also like excuse me. Okay, patron D. Who cares if your loungewear is trendy? No one's looking. Grr, gasp. Unless you wore them for me? Excuse me? Yusuke, kidding, absolutely not, right? Okay, I do like who cares if your loungewear is trendy? No one's looking. That's really the spirit there, and it's nice and short and concise. And I like how loungewear is italicized. He's making fun of her for calling it loungewear. He called it pajamas in Patron D's translation. He accused her of wearing pajamas. She corrected him, loungewear, like this is on trend right now. It's like loungewear. It's not pajamas, it's loungewear. And he's like, who cares if your loungewear is trendy? No one's looking. So that works really well. Unless you wear them for me? Kidding, absolutely not, right? Yeah, you don't need to keep that as a question. He's just backpedaling and very quickly correcting himself and like, I was only kidding. Of course you're not trying to impress me. Okay, next panel. デートの予定とかないの? さい、ねえよ、寂しいやつ、お前はどうなんだよ? So who is saying what line here? So the first line, デートの予定とかないの? So this nai no ending is a little more feminine. So that would clue you into the fact that this is Tamaki talking. Also, the tail of the speech balloon is pointing exactly at her. And then that neyo, that's very masculine. The tail of the speech balloon is pointing at her foot. So, to the untrained eye, it looks like she might be saying that, but no, that is Yusuke. And then she sighs, ha, and then says, samishii yatsu. And then he says, omae wa don nanda yo. So she says, deito no yote toka nai no? It's like, don't you have any date plans? Like, aren't you going to go on a date or something today? And he said, nope. And then she sighs, samishii yatsu. It's like, aw, you lonely boy. And then he says, omae wa don nanda yo? He's like, well, what about you? This is a lot of what this whole conversation is. It's a lot of like pot calling the kettle black. All right, so let's see how the patrons translated that. Patron A. So, no date, huh? It's more like she's kind of frustrated and exasperated. Like, why are you home lounging around in your clothes? Don't you have a date to go to or something? Here it sounds like she's being a little more sympathetic, which she isn't exactly yet. So, no date, huh? Sigh. Nope. How lonely? How lonely? Not quite. It's more like, aw, you lonely guy. You poor soul, I think is kind of more what we're going for here. How about you? And again, Yusuke, he's not just asking casually, like, how about you comes across as kind of casual. Like, so do you have a date today? Nah, how about you? It's too casual sounding. It's more like, omae wa dou nanda yo? He's being kind of like, well, hey, pot, stop calling me black. It's like, what about you, hypocrite? It has more of that vibe to it. Patron B, don't you have a date or something? I like that. That's more the vibe. Nope. What a loner. Ooh, I like that too. Loner for samishii yatsu. And then what about you? Yeah, again, what about you is a little too casual. It's more like, well, what about you? Just adding a well would make it a lot more the tone that we're going for here. Patron C, you have any dates coming up? Again, that's not quite the vibe. It's more like, don't you have a date to go to or something? You have any dates coming up is a little more casual. Fuu for the sigh. Nah, sucks to be alone. Do you? Sucks to be alone is great, samishii yatsu. And again, this is all coming across as a little too casual. Do you have any dates coming up? Do you? But she's being more scornful here. It's like, don't you have a date to go to? Or something? And he's like, well, what about you, little Miss Loner in her loungewear at home? Patron D, don't you have a date to go on or something? You don't need that to go on. Just don't you have a date or something? But don't you have a date to go on or something is fine too. Sigh, nada, for nope. That's pretty sad. Yeah, I like that too for samishii yatsu. Like, that's pretty sad. Yeah, and what about you? So, see how much work the yeah is doing there? It's kind of like, oh yeah? Well, what about you, Miss High and Mighty? Like, do you have a date? I don't see you dressing up and going on a date. Yeah, that is more the vibe. Next panel, she's just ... And then Yusuke says, "Ore tachi onaji chi ga nagareteru na." And then pa. So the pa sound effect is like a bright, sparkly smile, but also kind of a stupid, bright, sparkly smile. Like, duh. And then she says, "Issho ni shinai de yo." So this "issho ni shinai de yo" is a very, very common retort. So he's saying, "Ore tachi onaji chi ga nagareteru na." It's like, gee, like we really sure do have the same blood flowing through our veins, don't we? It's like, I guess genetics really does play a role in whether or not people can get a date. It's kind of the vibe here. And then she says, "Issho ni shinai de yo." She's like, don't lump me together with you. Again, this is a very quippy, very common cliche, but quippy comeback in Japanese. It's like, speak for yourself, mister. Kind of like that. Let's see how the patrons did that. So ... Ooh, patron A, like brother, like sister. Grin. Don't lump me in with you. Yeah, don't lump me in with you is fine for issho ni shinaide. That is more literally what it means. I really like brother, like sister for onaji chi. Grin. Patron B, like brother, like sister. Am I right? I kind of like that too, because and then bling, it kind of has that, he's sort of joking, he's kind of making a joke. And then Tamaki, I'm not like you at all. It's not as quippy as it was in Japanese, but it is the vibe. Patron C, That's how we know we're siblings, Sparkle. I'm not like you, okay? I kind of like Sparkle for the Sparkle smile. But again, it's kind of like a vacant, happy smile. That Sparkle's good. That's how we know we're siblings. I do like that. Because he is kind of making a joke out of it, turning it into a bit of a punchline. Patron D. Now this is what it means to be bonded by blood. Grin. Don't lump me in with you. Okay. Yeah, I kind of like speak for yourself. My interpretation of speak for yourself, mister. But don't lump me in with you works as well. Now this is what it means to be bonded by blood. Again, I think this line works a lot better if you say it out loud. If you read it, it's not as funny and catchy, but saying it out loud, it works pretty well. But I like, that's how we know we're siblings, or like brother, like sister. It's a little catchier and funnier and more like he's obviously making a joke out of it. The next panel, Tamaki says, "Ino!" And then there's the small tsu after it to show that she's kind of saying that in a huff, like humph. 私、学生の間は勉強と趣味を enjoy するのよ. So, いいの. It's like, well, I don't care. Like, well, whatever. While I'm a student, I want to enjoy studying and my hobbies. More like I want to focus on. I'm a student. I want to focus on my studies and hobbies. That's kind of more what she's doing that like, I don't care, it's okay. I'm a free spirit. I'm going to focus on my hobbies. I'm working on myself. It's that sort of vibe. It's like, I don't care that I don't have a boyfriend or a date. I chose this life. I'm happy, totally. Now in the next frame she says, 社会人になったら結婚を前提とした尊敬できる恋人を作って、いつかこの家を出て私はお兄ちゃんの靴下を拾わないで済むようになるのよ. So this is referencing something that happened in the pages that came before this. At the very beginning, she's chewing him out for leaving his dirty socks on the floor instead of putting them in the hamper. So that's the context here. So she's saying, when I grow up, 社会人になったら, when I join the workforce, 結婚を前提とした, so with marriage as a prerequisite, 尊敬できる恋人を作って. So cut out all the words that come before 恋人. 恋人を作って, I'm going to get a boyfriend, a lover. 尊敬できる恋人を作って, I'm going to get a lover or a boyfriend that I can respect. And then if you add the words that come before that, I'm going to get a lover or a partner that I can respect with the prerequisite of marriage. Like, I'm going to get someone who's on the marriage track, basically. It's like, I'm only going to date people who are in it for marriage and who I can respect. I'm gonna get a partner like that, and then いつかこの家を出て, and then someday I'll move out of this house, and then I won't have to spend my days picking up your dirty socks anymore. And then he retorts with 甘いんだよ, tamaki, and then ka, a little flash. Alrighty, let's see how the patrons translated all of that. Patron A. I've got time. School is for enjoying my studies and my hobby. I like I've got time for ino. That is kind of the vibe. It's like, it doesn't matter because I've got time. School is for enjoying my studies and my hobby. My hobby, I think hobbies would probably be better there. Once I graduate, I'll date a guy who's worthy of me, get married, and one day I'll leave this house and never have to pick up another one of your socks ever again. I really like that. That flows super, super well. And notice the way that everything is separated into the balloons. It also works as complete thoughts. Just as a note, I mean, I kind of did this too as a bit of a Freudian slip when I was translating koibito. We don't know her sexuality. We don't know if she's going to date a guy. Maybe she's a lesbian. Maybe she's bi. So that's just a little point there, but who knows? Like maybe in the future we'll find out she's a lesbian, and then it would have been weird to translate that as I'll date a guy. I'll find a partner, I think would probably be better, just to be sure and cover our bases. Who's worthy of me? I kind of like that. Who's worthy of me? As in, instead of who I respect and who has marriage as a prerequisite. It's a little bit wordy, it's a little bit clunky to word it that way. I kind of like reducing it as worthy of me, get married, and one day I'll leave this house and never have to pick up another one of your socks ever again. Okay, patron B. Look, for ino. That's not what ino is, but I think it's a good way of saying something short in that balloon that is very small. I'm trying to enjoy studying and my hobby. Why is hobby singular in both of these translations so far? It really should be hobbies. Like, I don't think anybody has just one hobby. Unless she's talking about a specific hobby of fashion, which we haven't quite gotten into yet in the story. Yeah, hobby by itself is just weird in this context. I'm trying to enjoy studying and my hobby while I'm at school. So again, you don't have to translate enjoy suru as enjoy. It's a little clunky, actually, in this way. I'm trying to enjoy studying and my hobby while I'm at school. Yeah, I think something more like I'm focusing on studying and my hobbies while I'm at school, or I'm just having fun studying and indulging in my hobbies or something. Enjoying in this context just sounds a little weird to me while I'm at school. And when I get a job, I'll find a respectable man that I want to marry. I do like respectable, that I want to marry. Someday I'll move out and I'll never have to pick up your dirty socks ever again. Glare. I do like that. Someday I'll move out and I'll never have to pick up your dirty socks ever again. I do like that. And again, respectable man that I want to marry. We don't know if she wants to marry a man. She might want to marry a woman. If that's legal in Japan by the time this video comes out. Let's see. Patron C. I'm still young. I kind of like that, again, for Ino. As a student, I'm enjoying my classes and activities. You know, enjoying actually works a little better for me in this particular phrasing. As a student, I'm enjoying my classes and activities. I don't know, though. It's still... I don't know if a person would say that. As a student, I'm enjoying my classes and activities. It sounds kind of more like she's giving a speech. I mean, it could just be like this is something she's reciting. This is something that she's had to say to a lot of people, probably. Once I get a job, I'll find a partner who I respect and will go on to marry, and I'll leave. That's a little wordy. Once I get a job, I'll find a partner who I respect and will go on to marry. I feel like there's a tighter way of wording that. I think Patron A did. Once I graduate, I'll date a guy who's worthy of me, get married. Yeah. But I like that Patron C made it a partner, non-gendered. And I'll leave this house and never pick up your dirty socks again. I dig that. Patron D, it's fine. As a student, it's fine. It's really more like I don't care. Or well, screw you. Or I don't care. As a student, or I'll be fine. As a student, I'm just choosing to prioritize my schoolwork and hobbies right now. This is kind of more the vibe. It's my choice. Like I'm just prioritizing my schoolwork and hobbies right now, not dating. That's kind of what we're going for here. And after I graduate, I'll get myself a respectable man with an eye toward marriage. Ooh, an eye towards marriage is nice for the marriage as a prerequisite in Japanese. With an eye towards marriage. I kind of like that. I don't like that it's a gendered man. I get it. Like she's probably straight. She's probably talking about a guy. Knowing the kind of character and the kind of manga that this is. I have not read super ahead. I've only read like half of volume 1, so I don't know what her sexuality is. But again, it's probably better, just safer to cover your bases and make it gender neutral. Leave this house behind and never have to pick up my brother's gross socks ever again. I like adding gross in there just to emphasize. Because, again, earlier in this episode, which we didn't cover in this video, she's chewing him out because he left his dirty socks on the floor instead of putting them in the hamper. Okay, on that note, we're going to stop here. This is the end of part A of this manga series. We will do part B in another video that is going to come out in probably a week or two after the release of this video. Thank you to the patrons who participated in this video, who contributed their translations. And thank you to my super patrons, Data Fox, Greg, Henry Roaming, Jacobel, Lay, Fam, Alexei, Cody Spence, Roel, Velos, Brent, Dave, Matt Mack, and Tony Hoyt. See you next time, maybe.